Welcome to Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave, where we're on a mission to answer 4 questions from the best leaders and leadership minds in the country. So, with that, we are pleased to have special guests today, David Gums. So, David, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be with you.
Oh, glad you're here. So, tell our listeners a little bit about your background, kind of who you are, what you do. Kind of got a hint from the shirt, but just in case it's hard to read from the video, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO, or what we call the core EO here at National Fruit, because we deal with apples mainly.
No pun
And
intended.
no. So we're the White House brand. We produce for a lot of different people, but certainly our main product is vinegar. But if it can be done with an apple, we do it. And so anyway, I try to head this organization up and keep it going in the right path and the right direction.
Nice, nice, nice. Somehow, I'm sure some days easier said than done.
Absolutely.
And it's funny not growing up in Winchester and kind of being a transplant here back in 2013, but growing up from the time I could even remember anything, we always had White House applesauce. I kind of grew up on that. And so it's kind of funny living now right down the street from where it was made.
So you get to smell the apple butter.
Yeah, exactly. You can smell the apple butter. You're thinking, my mom swore by White House everything. So we had a house full of it growing up in Chesapeake. So it's just hilarious. Like I said, literally driving by the plant every day. So speaking of which, I know you put out a post not that long ago that was pretty descriptive, but for the listeners, tell kind of like the size, because he was like, 92 acres and so many millions of square foot under roof and all this kind of stuff. So tell us just a little bit about that.
Yes, I'll start back with, 1908, the company was founded really on the banks of the Potomac in Alexandria. And that's where it got the brand name White House. So back then it had every, the Lincoln brand, the Monument brand, you name it, anything in DC, it had a brand for it. But the White House became the dominant brand, and then of course has carried, since 1908 to today. Um, so they moved to Winchester in about 1913. Originally, the company was owned by Borden Armstrong, and then the Armstrong family for 3 generations.
Okay.
And so we had plants really, in Michigan and all over the place, North Carolina, Colorado. And as the industry consolidated, or as the industry became, the technology changed to allow you to store apples year round and also process them year round.
Mm,
It all consolidated here to the mothership, Winchester, Virginia. So anyway, it's been, at one time, of course, we would run 3 or 4 months and store everything for the whole year. Now we're JIT. But so that's what, some of the things that allowed us to consolidate back here to the mothership. But just a little under 1 million square feet of space, and we do lease some of that space out. We don't need it all, but we store a lot of apples here. So we're storing apples, anywhere from a year to year and a half, depending on the crop size from one year to the next, and or the varieties that we need.
right.
So it's about 92 total acres here, and so some of that, probably about 20 or 30 of it is not utilized, but it's kind of nice to go up on the hill, and one of the highest spots in Winchester, and you can see from Strasburg to I think as far as Martinsburg up there.
Nice. So I'm assuming most of your acreage isn't necessarily in the city limits.
It's all in the city limits here at the facility, but our orchards are not in any city for sure.
No.
So, yeah, that doesn't go too well. But so they're in more rural areas, and we try to cluster them together in 1,000 acre blocks, so it makes sense for the overhead. And if so, people will see us sell and buy, and sometimes that's because, we just can't get the block size we need to be the most efficient. So we say we grow it. We're tree to table organization, and we grow most of our own supply. We do
Nice.
purchase some from the outside. But yeah, we also have a little saying, we make it, we don't fake it, because a lot of our folks out there, pay people to make stuff. Certainly one of our biggest competitors in the vinegar industry, has other people make it all, and of course we do it from the tree, right to the table here with vinegar.
Yeah, no white labeling for White House, huh?
I'm sorry.
I said no white labeling for White House, huh?
Right.
Have all the vinegar come in for trying to just slap a White House label on it and go. It's like, yeah, not so much.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work too well. And really, vinegar is a lot of the little guys have been bought up by foreign entities, and so certainly Bragg's would be our largest competitor on the ACV side, but on the white distilled side, it would be foreign competition. But it's they are making it most of that stuff here in the States. There's very little imported as a finished product.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. So what's your employee count?
Yeah, you asked me for numbers we normally don't give out,
Oh,
but
I'm sorry. Well, if you
that's
don't
all
have
right.
to, I'm just kind of trying to get people to understand the kind of the size and scope of
That's
what you
fine.
guys do, because I mean, you got a great organization, and like I said, and you're all over the country, and like I said, a brand that everybody knows. So, um, you got three little elves back there churning out apple cider vinegar all day long, right?
Well, we've automated quite a bit. So, in 2006, when the family, we kind of changed from the Armstrong family to the Gum family,
Okay.
and I'd worked for them for 25 years prior to that. And so we transitioned that. We're about 500 employees, and let's just say we're about 150 now. So, with basically same business model. So back then we were really heavy in juice. Today we're not so heavy in juice, and because that stuff can be imported from everywhere under the sun, and we're more heavy in vinegar.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Well, like I said, that was one of the things too that my mom always had was not just the applesauce, but the juice. That was quite a staple in the household. So, no, it's interesting to see that kind of transition. I'm sure there's probably a really, really good story behind the transition with the Armstrong family to the Gum family.
There he is. Would you like me to speak of that?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Speak on that, and we'll jump into the first question.
Well, yeah, I think we were typical, third generation, and that was somewhat difficult. The son-in-law who had been a key player and run the organization, kind of retired at I think 74 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Straight, yeah, Mr. Strader, and he was a great guy. He was a good guy to be a mentor and certainly taught me a lot. And Verlis Miller was in charge of the operations. And those two guys were known in the industry, as really great guys. And of course, Frank Armstrong was our chairman CEO. But as those guys retired and the family was trying to, they were in their 70s plus, they were trying to figure out, what do we do with this thing? Made a run at going to fourth generation, but a lot of family to to buy out and worry about. And so, one day they just decided to put it up for sale. I really didn't see myself as a candidate. I really saw myself as maybe even getting out of the organization at that time. I only came here to work for 2 years.
Well, you screwed that one up.
Yeah, I did. So my stepfather was a mechanical contractor, and building things was always kind of fun for me, and I just wanted to build things and be with him. So I really only came for 2 years to get some experience outside of that organization or that family element. And anyway, just never got away from here and worked in almost every segment of the company. So I certainly enjoyed it a lot. Sometimes people would say Dave was very passionate about White House, but they'd also say maybe even possessed to a point. So, they basically said, "Hey, David," the majority of the family said, "Hey, David, if you get close, it's yours." And so we started working on it, and anyway, and that's how the transition, went from. So we are family. We've been a family-owned business, since 1908. We're just not the same
Different,
family. We
different
actually we
families.
yeah, we cultivate the family too. We cultivate to another family. So, but it certainly being its vice president, general manager under the Armstrongs, and then transition to CEO was my family was, they knew this business meant a lot to me personally, and I wanted to see it be successful. Uh, so we took the challenge.
Nice, very nice. Like I said, you going from family owned but different family is just a twist that you don't hear quite often. I'll put it that way.
That's true.
Most of the time, as a
Yeah.
corporate, slides in there and tries to buy it up or something. But yeah, going from that, the closest that I've heard is when there was I think a third generation business that I was interviewing, and each of the generations actually didn't inherit it; they actually purchased it from the generation before. And I'm like, oh, tell me more. So that one was weird. Like, I'm not gonna give my son doesn't just get the business, like he's gonna pay me for it. I was like, interesting. Okay. All right, that's a twist. Same third generation, but way different. But yeah, going from one family to another is quite a different endeavor. So I was like, all right, there's got to be a good story there.
Well, we haven't figured that out yet, what we're going to do next. Because we're first generational. A lot of people think, oh, National Fruit family owned, since 1908. They kind of think of it as, okay, your parents gave it to you or something like that, and it's quite different, obviously. And and I saw, I mean, it was a good time. It was, my time with the Armstrongs was great and wonderful, but I certainly saw the challenges with that. And, one of the reasons we, immediately went to an outside board when I took over. We appointed an outside board because we had to have some, outside influence. When it's all internal, it's kind of tough, and you
Yeah.
lose some perspective, certainly, and some accountability. So anyway, we, we did that, and I tell my kids, this was my, this is my dream, this is my thing, and it doesn't have to be yours. Um, but they all work here, and we really haven't decided how that's going to transition. Or, I kind of like the idea of, I like that you have to buy it, and
Sure did. I could connect you later with the gentleman. It was quite a
yeah, and it could, it could go to someone else. I mean, I never forget when we were financing it, and and I was in front of the bank, and we were getting everything together, and and they said one time something to the effect, anybody that sat in front of us with as much passion as you got, we would finance. And
nice.
so and we have some of those people here inside this company. They're, we say they bleed green and yellow, and you almost have to bleed green and yellow to be here. I mean, we're very demanding, and we're very lean. And so it's a definitely family environment. I mean, I think people don't really respect the analogy of saying, it's like raising children, but I don't mean that by any disrespect, but certainly, you want your kids to be the best they can be, and you're not going to hold back words, and things that
Right.
need to be spoken. So.
No, that makes sense. And I mean, like I said, without context, you could be like, hey, what's that? But no, it makes perfect sense when you're like, hey, these people come in maybe in their early 20s and they've been here for, 15, 20 years. You're trying to grow them and mentor them and really, put them in a good spot and, in the right direction. So, building a culture that people want to stay. That's important.
Yeah, and you can't live in a false world. I mean, I tell our folks, I mean, there was like three equity groups at the very end, battling for this thing, and I say, if you were working for them, this is how it would be, and so yeah, we are family, and most of our people have been built inside of the organization, but we certainly can't rely on that for our future. We really have to be extremely competitive, and there's no reason we can't have fun with it, but we just can't stay where we're at, and we can't always think that we'll build from within.
Yeah, sometimes some outside expertise and just a different way of looking at things isn't the worst thing in the world.
Correct. Yeah, agree.
So speaking about that, jump into the first question. So what does leadership mean to you, and what does good leadership look like?
Wow. Uh, so I mean, I guess leadership. to me is someone who can take a team or a group of people and move them from point A to point B. Um, and we use a lot of sports analogies here. So, football teams, line up and everyone's there, right? They're
Right.
not out to lunch. They're not on break. They've practiced, they played, and they got a game plan. And the minute that the ball snapped, everything starts changing. And the team that does that most effective wins. And so, we use that analogy here. So leadership to me is one, people got to believe in you and, they got to want to follow you and you got to give them all the reasons and perform in a way they'd want to do those things. It's building that dedication, that commitment, for people to, put a good part of their life, in an organization and work, that makes them feel like a winner and they accomplish things. So, I mean, I think, that's what leadership is. For us, our mission is cultivate continuous improvement, in all we do. And so, regardless what our position is in the company, we want to make sure that our leadership is cultivating that continuous improvement, so that because everything changes, right? It just doesn't stay the same. We don't,
No,
we don't peel apples anymore. We don't, it's all automated. It's a whole
stop.
different ballgame.
You don't have a bunch of grannies in rocking chairs out on the front porch
No.
peeling those apples.
Well, when I first started, we'd have like 1,400 people here, and there'd be a lot of people with trim knives, we still had peelers, but they required a lot of physical attention as well. So they had these little special knives with, and some of them, every once in a while we find one here, and someone goes, "Oh, what's this?" So, um, yeah, the world just continues to change, and we've always tried to be lean, but also the first at the innovation, the best at in our field. We don't have to be we don't have to be the biggest to do that. We don't have to be
Right.
financed by some foreign government or anything like that. We can beat them if we're good and if everybody's on the same page, and so, in any organization, I think you get a certain amount of drama and a certain amount of distractions, and so the more we can keep everyone focused on where we're trying to move the ball and how well we're doing it and where our gaps are. For us, we have a 9 o'clock meeting every morning. And sometimes people just dread that meeting, but it's mandatory you be there. We actually stole it from Walmart. We had a person in charge of our sales who came from Walmart, and he says, "Hey, this is kind of what they did," and we kind of liked it, so we took it and expanded upon it. I mean, we even sing our company song at the end. So if you're not in a good mood, you have to at least sing to pretend like you are. Uh, but all our numbers are laid out every day. We run a financial statement every day,
Wow.
cash P&L. So just, trying to never, go maybe backwards or go to the company who, that would have allowed our issues, that we'd have put the company up for sale in the first place. So trying never to repeat those issues, and just grow.
I was gonna say, until you fully automate, you're always gonna have some level of drama issues wherever, as long as you've got people. I mean, it's just human nature. I mean, but if you build a culture, it sounds like building a culture to get to the point where you negated as much of that silliness that can creep up in organizations as possible.
Absolutely. I think wherever you have two or more people gathered together, you will have issues. Uh,
Yeah, so if you have three or more, Gallup says at least one of them is actively disengaged. But what does Gallup know? They're just
Right.
they're new to the game. So what does good leadership look like to you as we kind of close out this segment?
Yeah, good leadership. There are some days I have to apologize to my team because, I'm some days not a good leader. There are some days where I lose my cool or I'm maybe too critical. Um, but it's difficult, to have experienced some things And now I'm the old guy here. So but it's difficult to experience some things and see people then experience the same thing. So I think good leadership is trying to build upon experiences, not having to go back and people experience those same things over again so that they can appreciate them. And it's very difficult, but I think the more you're engaged, I think leadership has to be engaged, and then
Yes.
good leadership can't be so engaged that the organization becomes stagnated because you're engaged in every little component of it. People always say that, David Gum knows everything that's going on here, and it's just not simply true. But I try to pick enough things that I can, slide in, slide out that they think I know everything. But you have to be careful with that because then, you can stagnate an organization. So engagement's extremely important. For us, we are family. I mean, there's, when our people have issues, they are part of our family, and so we'll take care of them. We've never had a person go off salary for illness or anything of that nature. If someone has issues, it's our issue. We put people through the Dave Ramsey, financial classes, and they can sign up for
Nice.
that anytime they want to because that's very important, and that seems to be the thing that repeats itself more. You have more issues with, people. If people aren't healthy at home, marriage and or finances, then they're not going to be healthy here. So I think good leadership has to recognize the needs of their people and try to address those the best they can. And people are going to follow what they see. So, if you're engaged or you're committed, you're dedicated, you're passionate, then that's the best you can expect.
Yeah.
But if you're not, God help you.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right. You can't expect as either the owner or the CEO of somebody to care more about the business than you or be more passionate about the business than you. It's just not going to happen.
that's correct. I think so.
Well, and the funny thing is, one thing I'll hit on before we end this segment and we'll go into our next set of questions is that if it's easier for people to give you their all when they know you have their back and they know it, like, pun intended, of course, to the core, that you have their back. Like I saw so and so out for a month or so, whatever, and they never lost salary. I saw them, take up for this person. I've seen them do that. So I know they'll do that for me. And it's a lot easier to have somebody that's totally engaged and giving you that extra effort and giving you their all when they know you got your back than you big corporate whatever. And then all of a sudden, it's got plants all over the nation and they're just like, yeah, it's just a number to them, big difference.
Yeah, we're definitely not a number. Yeah, we had a little incident 2 weeks ago. A gentleman who has a company car, and his wife's car broke down, so she couldn't go to work at night. So he said, "Just take my car," which is a company car, and she wrecked it. Now, yeah. So he was lined up. He told his boss, the issue, and he said, "Well, you're going to have to go tell David."
Stand tall before the
And
man.
yeah, and he's second level in operations, type management positions. So anyway, and he came prepared to be fired, which I was going, wow. And I said, yeah, I understand why you did it. I understand why you did it. You had to get to work in the morning. She's got night shift, your first shift. I understand why you did it, and you shouldn't have done it. But you're not gonna get fired over it. We're gonna get through it. We'll fix it, and let's get back to work. Let's get focused on the job. So and that kind of thing goes, uh,
Word
you know, we,
spreads.
yeah, it just spreads. Even though we say, hey, we're like Dave Ramsey. If you gossip here, we'll fire you. But that kind of gossip goes pretty quick, and it's good for the company. It's not done for that reason, but it's who we are.
Well, like I said, they know, Joe's walking in there and Joe's going to be walking out, with his papers and Joe's still here in a week. It's like, he must have got fired. So, but things must have turned out pretty good for Joe. So, no, that's awesome. So, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this segment of Conversations on Leadership with Dr. David. We'll be back with our next two questions. Welcome back to our next segment of Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave. We are here with special guest David Gum from National Fruit, White House, all things White House, applesauce, everything, right? core
That's
executive
correct.
officer. So that's a pun intended. So with that, let's jump straight on into our second question. So what was one of the biggest leadership challenges you've had to face?
Yeah, so narrowing it down to one has been tough for me. And I've had some challenges. One when we consolidated our operations and brought it all here to Winchester, and we shut plants down and affected people's lives. That was tough. And I flew all over the country, addressing plants being shut down, and that was tough. And certainly the ownership change in 2006, that was a big reorganization, and took a lot of effort for us. We made a big turnaround in 1 year, which people didn't think it was possible. And I can remember our original bank, the funding bank, said, "David, you should write a book," when when the year was over. And so I haven't wrote that book yet, by the way.
Oh, well, let's make
Uh,
sure we cover that story before we end the podcast because I definitely want to hear that one. And we talk offline about the book.
all right. But I think the probably the one that really sticks to my gut, is being the most difficult is, we experienced the fatality in October of 2015 here at the facility. And I was actually not here on the day that it occurred. And it was, I was in Maine with the entire family. And so the call came through about 10 o'clock that morning that, we had an incident with a tow motor that, was really bizarre, but led to a fatality. What was interesting is to see how well the team performed. Because the leader, the main guy wasn't here, so to speak, but the team really performed. I always find our team performs in crisis really, really well, or when there's issues, they really step up and they perform well, and they certainly did that day. So we got the call, and I just looked at my family and said, um, we need to turn the bus around.
Vacation's over.
And yeah, so we came back, and we shut the plant down, shut the whole facility down. It's hard not to take these things extremely personal. People always tell me, "David, don't take this personal. It's just business." And I say, "Look, this business is personal to
Yeah,
me. It is
that
me."
wow, yeah. Especially with
Yeah.
150 folks. It's not like you got 6,000 employees and folks you've never met. I mean, 150 folks, you know everybody.
Yeah. So, it's probably not a week goes by that someone's not trying to buy us. And so when you have something like that occur, you really have to dig deep and say, is this, because this could happen again tomorrow. I mean, you do the best you can, but to some extent, sometimes, you're riding down 81, and you don't know what'll happen, right? There are risks out there, and you try to manage the risk the best you can, but it could happen again. And can your heart take it? Can you take it? And can the business take it? Can the family take it? Because it really, really throws everybody for a loop. And anyway, and so I think, the overall guiding principle there is lead with compassion. Just lead with compassion, and forget the all the legal stuff, forget OSHA and all that stuff. I mean, you can't completely forget it, but don't let that rule you, and don't let that
Right.
define you. So we shut the facility down. We went into prayer sessions. We have a pastor, on staff, so
Nice.
not full time, but so we just took time out, and stopped, evaluated what had happened. We were very transparent about everything we knew, and how it had happened and what had happened. We made some changes out of that. It was a bizarre incident. Our fine was extremely low, and I can remember, when we were settling up, a year later, I said, but if I don't think that applies, and the guy looked at me and he says, "Listen, you had a fatality, you got to pay something."
Yeah.
But we really had all the safety training in place. We had it was just tough for us to even believe that this could happen on our watch. And tougher, for the, we're a family of families. So this person had family here. And so to minister to them, and make sure we carried on, and we we did it the most compassionate way possible, and it's tough to go to those funerals. It's tough to address the family. But we were just transparent, even with the family. So anything they asked, we didn't hold back. So it's an extremely humbling experience, and a tough experience, and I'd say that's the to me that's the toughest the toughest thing I've ever had to do in the business.
I can imagine that. Like I said, people, change businesses change hands. There's corporate restructure all the time, but there's not that many times when you have everything in place. You've got the OSHA stuff, you got the regulatory stuff, done the training, you've got the safety mechanisms in place. You think you've got all the safeguards that you could ever need and all that are ever required, plus, 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 and then something happens that you're not expecting. Like I said, that I could imagine that being tremendously difficult.
It was, and again, I'll say, if there ever was a prouder moment of the team, it would have been through that, at that time. I really saw them perform at their absolute best. So, it took us a little while to get back here. And I found people expected that, right? I heard from one of the second shift folks, hey, we saw the bus coming off 37. So, people were paying attention. People were watching, what you're doing. I had a little bit more flavor to that. The reason we were in Maine is we were Kennebunkport,
Okay.
and we were going to have lunch with both the Bushes, both presidents. And so, don't want to sour anybody's political views, but I was a board member of the USO, and that's how
Very
uh,
nice.
yeah, they were,
Big into
Senior
that.
Bush was very much,
Oh yeah.
engaged in the USO, and so that's how that relationship came about. And so anyway, we were up there for that, and anyway, we just called over and said, hey, um, we're we're canceling out. And they said, that's great. Whenever you want to come back, just come back. And anyway, and they completely understood. But anyway, yeah, it was a tough moment. And my son-in-law got behind the wheel and drove us home. It was
Wow. Yeah. Tell George.
and everyone knew that in the company. Everyone knew that as well in the company. So, but it really wasn't it wasn't even a thought. It wasn't even something we had to think about or take
No,
time to think about. We
no.
definitely knew what our priorities were, and later realized that people were watching us and people were seeing if that where our priorities were. And I think you know uh, people had to come to the realization that we do have risk. We can't control every little thing here, but we do have risk. But we're going to take care of our own the best we possibly can, and we're going to learn from those things and move forward. We didn't. I don't think we left anything unturned, trying to evaluate, what could have happened or been better, and then implement that. So, but just those are things. Those are the things that it's much easier to be sitting on the beach, looking at your stock portfolio than be responsible for something like that, right? And
Yeah.
it does challenge you and make you think about what you're doing and what you do and how it affects people, how it affects other people's lives, children, their kids, and whatnot.
Well, one thing that I picked up that you were talking about that is love for folks to really wrap their head around is that everyone is always watching. You're like, people were watching. Oh, no, 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 dear sir. They're always watching. Sometimes we forget it and it becomes background noise. But when
Yeah.
you're in that position, they are always watching to see how you react to things and where your priorities are and all of that. So, I, yeah, kudos on. Hey, George, we'll have to reschedule. Click.
Yeah.
Turning around because it's like I said, they're all you just don't realize how much people are watching. And when you say one thing and do another, one of my biggest pet peeves personally is that you find out the company vision, mission, values, there's somewhere in the HR manual and you hear about them when you're onboarded. And maybe if you get got to stand tall for the man. They're maybe written on the wall somewhere, around the office. But other than the maybe written on the wall and in the HR manual, like you don't see them lived, right? You're like, hey, what that says and what they're doing just don't jive, right? Because
Right.
people are watching, and when you live up to your values, people notice that, and that just is a big like, hey, I'm in the right place. Yeah, because there's nothing that's more off, at least I mean, me personally, nothing much more off-putting than leadership saying one thing and acting in a different manner. So
Yeah, it's that's extremely important. I think too often we don't think we're you can get in a place where you're not engaged and you don't realize that without them you're not moving this ship, right? You
no,
and yeah. So
you personally are
yeah,
loading boxes of apples into the machines, right?
right.
You personally
And
are
and
stocking the.
maybe I shouldn't use ship. You're not
I know
growing
what you
these
mean.
trees.
Exactly.
You're
I
not
was
going to bloom.
No, 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 no. I was going to say you're not the one you're not the one physically doing everything. You rely on others to make things happen. And like I said, but it is interesting how much you think you're kind of insulated and how even the guy on the front line. I had a friend of mine who owns a business, and he was telling me about some issues that he was having. Well, and that don't tell anyone because nobody knows. I'm like, nobody knows. Everybody in your business knows. Like, I'm surprised that's not part of your new hire orientation, how much people know about that particular issue. I'm like, I didn't have the heart to break it to them. They're like, dude, everybody that works for you knows. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a secret.
Yeah. Yeah. You're the
I
last
could,
one to know.
right, exactly. That's
Yeah.
my point.
You're the last one to know they know.
Exactly. I did not have the heart to break it to him. I wasn't going to be the guy. But to your point, he just missed it that hey, everybody does. That's like, nah, they see more than you think they see. Let's just
Yeah.
put it that way. It's always a good point to remember for leadership. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. One of our, I got a little story to go with that. One of our competitors had a strike, and so they were out, and we really hadn't given it much thought. Assumed they'll figure it out. They're a big corporation.
Yeah.
Um, and one of our truck drivers came in and said, "Hey, we're gonna start running for them next week." And we went, "What?" And I mean, within 12 hours, the phone rang. And so,
Wow.
yeah. So somewhere they were checking out trucking. And so, the trucking department put it together, okay, so, they knew somebody and that knew somebody who was checking on the freight costs, what it costs to deliver product here and or distribute it from here, for this competitor. And so, it's amazing what people know, and they know they sense it, feel it, hear it, put pieces together. And the more transparent you are, the better off you're going to be because I
Amen.
say if you yeah, I like that there's a little movie, I think it was Dave or the President Dave or something, and uh and he said if you can't if you don't lead them to the water, they'll drink the darn sand. And it's true. If you're not transparent, we have a company meeting here every month, and we have it's a challenge. It's a day's pay. So we have two facilities here, and it's a competition between the two facilities. Who can get
Nice.
the most questions right? And if you get whatever side gets the most questions right, gets a week's pay. So, over the course of a year, you don't want to miss that too many times, and it's a pretty nice bonus
Yes.
to get a week's pay, and you can get 12 of them if you win all of them, but it's based on how much knowledge the team has, and so it really puts the management and leadership to task because they're not allowed to participate. And it really is, it's the floor, it's the people on the floor, it's people doing the work.
Nice.
And yeah, and so what do they know? And do they know what the objectives are? Do they know where we stand? Like we'll put a graph up with a trend line and say, what is that? And they'll have to know what it is, with no titles.
Right.
So making sure that they know where our business is and where it's headed and how they can participate to make it better.
Nice. Well, with the carrot of a week's pay, I mean, you don't mind, jumping into an annual report every now and then, and maybe checking that out. I mean, risk reward, not bad. Let me get an hour read on this thing and see if I can come up with some right answers.
Well,
That's a
it's
nice hook.
fun.
It's a nice
It's fun to
engagement.
watch.
Yes, I was gonna say it's a nice engagement hook, and it's definitely some of those annual reports for companies are not the most engaging of reads, right? So that puts a little bit of spice into. All right, I'm willing to jump into this, and let me do a little bit of research before the company meeting, see if I can get some right answers.
Yeah, ours are probably more they're more so it like yield is a big important thing here.
Yeah.
So, we have liquid yields and sauce yields and apple yields. And so I'd be, that's we call it the six pillars. So we have six pillars in the company. And if we get those six things right, we're gonna have a fantastic year. Everybody's gonna make bonus. So we focus on six pillars. And so one of those is yields. And anyway, and of course the other one is, one of the operations would be total operations cost per unit. So it's interesting to see if they know, when they see that graph, have they seen it before? Has anybody talked to them about it? Um, or certain, and it might even be tasks that we're implementing to change the direction or get a different type result. So anyway, but for, it tests our leadership to make sure they are engaging our people to the fullest extent every day, because without them, we're just not going to be as successful as we possibly can. It's like, using the talents, using our talents, and and the good book says, we should use our talents, right? So, but
Yes.
so many times, you got all these people in your organization, and people just fail to use them.
Well, and sometimes you don't realize one of the things that I like about one of the assessment tools I use to talk about workplace competencies is right, man. One of their top five was project management, and we don't have them working on any kind of projects. Like that's what I didn't know I didn't know that was a big skill of theirs. Or wow, well, maybe we need to use it, like you said, where their talents are. Or why am I getting mad at George when like out of 25 competencies, like what I'm asking him to do is like number 23 or 25. Like I can't get so mad at him because that's just not where his strengths lie. So maybe let's figure out a different place to put George so he can be successful. I always think it's funny that kind of light bulb discovery sometimes when people are like, I didn't know Julie was good at that. Man, we need to start getting her more involved in such and such.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah,
it,
it
it
is.
is pretty cool. So I think we're going to wrap up this second segment of Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave, and we will come back for our last segment and our final two questions. Welcome back to our final segment of Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave, and we are here with David Gum from National Fruit and White House Products. So let's jump straight into our next question. What do you see as one of the biggest mistakes leaders make today?
Well, I would think it's not getting engagement.
Hmm.
Um, and I would think it's not continue to educate your folks and require that. So you it's said something about project management, and so for us here, we believe that if you do time management well and you do project management well, boy, we got 70% of the battle won. And so that's a requirement every year for our folks, and they can get it however they want to. They can go online but for them to refresh themselves on those skill sets. And some people just are not good at time management. Some people it comes very natural. But managing that time, because that's the one thing we're limited to. And so it's we have done several different I guess I would say projects on time management or theories and ways to measure it, and it always reveals something. It always reveals that, my gosh, we can do a whole lot more if we just manage it better, and what you spend your time on, or you spend your time on stuff that will actually add to distribution, grow the company, or do you spend it on maintenance and and admin things that could be easily delegated or be done at a different level. And so sometimes tracking those things and going through some of those exercises and taking some of those classes is great. But I think the biggest um, as I work with younger people,
Right.
when you get to be 63, they're all younger, right? And so, and maybe one of the and they're fun. I mean, they pick up stuff so much faster. I was,
Oh yeah.
just last week I was trying to get ready for the company meeting, and anyway, and we didn't have everything in the PowerPoint or the presentation the way we wanted it. And so I said to my assistant, who obviously is much younger than me, I said, well, listen, I can do it. And it's going to take me 20 minutes, but if you do it, it'll take you 10. I think he did it in 5. So, there's just things they can do better, and you got to recognize that, right? But I also think that sometimes people think it's all supposed to be, today. And leadership isn't, you're just not going to be given a title and given this position, and you're just going to be, day one, you're going to know everything and be great and do everything. My grandfather used to always say that, an educated person is a dead person, and that, if I used to have this teacher, and he would always, he didn't seem to know much. He always said, when you ask a question, he would always say, well, I don't know, but an educated guess would be. And when I told my grandfather that, he said, well, there is no such thing as an educated person. That's a dead person. And so you have to learn every day, and education should teach you how to learn. And so, for us, I mean, I people are always asking me, okay, what's the flavor of the month? What's the book of the month or the book of the week? And I'm usually reading 5 books at a time, and I don't. At one time I couldn't read at all. I mean, I got hit by a car when I was 12 years old, and it took me a long time to recoup from that, and really gave me some learning disabilities. But when I got to be about, 22 or so, it just like, it all fell in place, and I just love to read. I love, and I won't read fiction, but I love to read, especially books that are written about, other businesses and real stories,
Mm.
um, especially things you can relate to. And so you really, we read a book at the 9 o'clock meeting little by little. It depends on how much I talk or how long the meeting goes. But if we have time, we put the audio on, and because I found that, it's very tough for people to read these days or take time to read. But you've got, with technology today, it's incredible. And you got 20 minutes home and 20 minutes there,
Yep.
and you can have the book playing, but a lot of people just won't do it. So anyway, we would make this book reading mandatory, and then everyone have to come and give a book report. But I think, you'd really got to spend a lot of time developing people, and, it just doesn't, you just don't hire people and they just have it all. And, everyone's got their weaknesses and strengths. So for us, we hire executive coaches for our executive team. So our executive team they have an executive coach. They do 360 evaluations on them, and try to keep the ball rolling. And then we'll stop for a while and then re-implement again. Especially we're having trouble getting the numbers. We're just we've got the right objective, we got the right strategies, we got the right tasks. We're just having a heck of a time getting executed and getting implemented.
Yeah.
And so, but I think the biggest mistake is being disengaged with your people, not recognizing that they need help every day, and you got to make sure that you're leading those things that are available, those resources that are available. Our executive team goes to Dave Ramsey, every year, and it's expensive. I mean, we don't sit in the back, we sit in the front, and it's very expensive. And I look at that bill and go, whoo, maybe I could take it and come back and told them. But there's and whether it's John Maxwell or Dave Ramsey or something, people constantly need to be engaged in the outside world and be challenged and learn. So I think when we play too much recess with that, or we just assume, hey, we just hired this guy right out of college, and man, they're a whippersnapper or whatever. They're still going to need development and help, and continue to give people those resources and provide that educational experience for them is great.
Nice. Well, two things. One, yeah, I all about the Audible. So I am
See.
I'm with you on that. I can't have that wasted time. I don't know what. It's something that, Drive Time University or whatever, they always have to have something going. You're not cutting the grass, you got the headphones on, under the ear protection, and listening to a book or listening to something. But it's funny, I talk about Maxwell. It was an adage that he talked about developing leaders. There's like leaders are are made in a crock pot, not a microwave. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
okay, that's I
Yeah.
like that. You just
Yeah.
got to realize this is not going to be an instant type of thing.
Yeah.
And I think they need to as well coming out. I remember um niece of mine that wanted to, hey, what are you going to school for? I want to be a CEO. Okay, well, like what industry, what trade, what I'll be a CEO. I just thought that he was going to come out with a bachelor's in business, work for 6 months, and then just get
Oh, yeah.
promoted to run to join. It's like, oh, honey, life doesn't work like that, but you'll figure it out. You don't have to listen to me. That's fine. You'll figure that out. Let's just say number of years later, it's still not the CEO. So
Right.
they figured it out. But I like that microwave versus crock pot analogy quite a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely a slow cooker. And
Yeah.
having the patience for that too. You mentioned the MBA. I've had experiences where, someone will come to me and say, I want to go get my MBA and I want to, and I say, well, this isn't the right program. We try to have as few policies as possible because we want the flexibility. We don't want to we want to have enough policies that obviously the organization can function, but we
Right.
don't have so many that we're a big corporation and every case can have its own uniqueness to it and application. But this young man, he comes, he wants to get his MBA, and I said, "Whew, this is going to be expensive." And you're signing up for 7 years with this expense, and he said, it won't matter, Mr. Gum, I will never leave you all, and anyway, he got his MBA, and like within a year he was gone, and because he just thought that along with that title came so much more money. And now he's been working this other place for 3 years, and he's stagnated. So if people just, yeah, they sometimes don't get that right, and it is a I'm not saying that that's so a lot of times in our 9 o'clock meeting when we're having some tough discussions, I'll say, okay, folks, that's NBA stuff right there.
I
And
understand.
yeah, we had one of our salespeople was what do I say? Um, he made a comment the other day, and I think everybody's waiting for my reaction. And he said, well, if we could reduce our costs, we could sell more. And I went, so we reduce our costs, we give it to our customer, and what? And as I run through the math, we'll be in
Yeah.
the same spot. And so, that, I used to have a friend that always said, anybody can sell below market. You can hire anybody to do that. People being able to sell your value and you having the value first and then being able to
Amen.
sell that value and get a return on investment. We once invested in this piece of equipment and it was state of the art and it really did wonders for our yields. And it lowered it did lower our costs considerably. And everyone wanted to sell on margin. So that was, whoa, 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 that's hard. We got to get our return on investment back. You can't give it away. And so some of those lessons are really tough, especially sometimes, sales folks don't have that financial background. I remember sending one of our VP of sales one time to a sales finance class for non-financial salespeople or something like that. And I was just like grabbing at straws. I was trying to get this person turned around and I didn't know what was going to do it. And I really internally didn't have much hope. Anyway, he comes back from the class and he tells his boss, he says, I can't believe David did that. That was wonderful. And he did. He came back with a whole different perspective, and it was a win. It was a really win, and I didn't even think we could get there because I didn't think that type of those wires just connected up there, And anyway, so it's an interesting challenge growing people, but that's what we do. I always like the building industry because you can put something together and you look at it and there it is. I remember one time my wife and I we remodeled a house. It took us 2 years to remodel. It was a log home, and every day I just every weekend I come up to it and I go, oh my gosh, this thing I get so depressed because there's nothing moving. So I said, stop. We're gonna stop and we're going to fix the whole outside. And we did. We, got all the outside fixed. I mean, even to the mulch and the shrubs and everything. And when you
Nice.
pulled up, that house looked. Now, when you opened the door, it was gutted, but you didn't know that from the outside. I mean, at least you could see something complete. And construction is pretty interesting because usually can see things complete and but they are then complete, right? And so with people, it's never complete and it's tougher to see, but growing them and building them is a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's two things that I picked out of that I thought were pretty cool. One, you were talking about educated and uneducated, and I had a fantastic opportunity when I went back to school to be able to speak at several different conferences that our university had their fingers in the pie. And twice I got a chance to go over to Oxford and speak at a conference there. And I picked up a little magnet from the bookstore. There's the coolest thing ever. And I got it on my fridge and I should have bought a ton of them and just put them everywhere. But it was a little thing from Oxford University. It said, he who graduates today and stops learning tomorrow, or he who graduated yesterday stops learning today is uneducated by tomorrow.
Wow.
And I was like,
I like
there,
that.
yes, I say he who graduates today, he who graduated yesterday and stops learning today is uneducated by tomorrow. I was like, yes, I gotta have this because it goes right to your point of you never stop learning. When you think you know it all, you don't. And the one peek behind the curtain, let me tell you that the biggest, scariest revelation with going through a PhD program. One, it has nothing to do with intelligence and smarts. It's just a level of persistence. Are you willing to take that beat down long enough for them to, all right, I feel guilty, right? I'm taking all your money. I beat you here. Just take it. Go, right? You've done everything we asked. We're tired of beating you out. Get out of here. But it's funny because you talk about the MBA folks, and my master's wasn't in business administration, but it was interesting to see the MBA folks have the stark realization on day one that I can't cite Harvard Business Review anymore, right? That's not a peer review. That level of like people losing their mind was just entertainment. I was eating popcorn, watching their heads explode about that. But the real peel behind the curtain was you think you get out of a program like that and you know everything, right? You know all of this stuff. And then what the magic was like, oh no, son, you haven't even scratched the surface. Like when they open up the door for that program, and then you realize I had no idea the well was that deep. I mean, you have no idea to the greatest extent of what you don't know. But they're trust me, they're gonna let you know how stupid you are and how much you honestly don't know as soon as you start a PhD program. You realize, oh my God, is this the most humbling experience on earth? Like one, I never stop learning. Two, there's like you feel inadequate ever saying you're an expert in anything because they're like, oh no, there's people that have 100 times more than I know about this, or 1,000 times, or they've written all these. It's amazing to realize how much when you finally know what you don't know, you're like, oh wow, yeah, that's a humbling experience. That makes you want to continue learning every day because you're like, all right, I gotta keep on the journey, man. I can't do this. And it's funny you talked about the financial stuff for the salespeople. I literally, and I'll get you a copy of this, but I literally talk about books. I took a revenue science course and it was really good. Great book. A friend of mine wrote it. But it's talking about saving old money versus creating new money. And people are all into saving old money, right? Oh, we can get a copy paper for less. Okay, that's nice, but that's not going to grow new money. And you mentioned about the machine. Hey, we're on margin, right? We saved all this money, right? So you do know that we're more profitable and we can pay for this machine and put more money back into the coffers if we leave the price the same. And now we just have all these better efficiencies. You do realize that, right? It doesn't have to be a race to the bottom.
Right.
Apparently they don't all realize that
No.
because your boy had to take the class, right?
Yeah. No, it is amazing how people really can get that wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the last one you talked about growing people. I've been involved ever since I did go back to school. I always, taught at the community college. I did presentations, is involved in training and development in some way, shape, or form in different industries since 92. And a buddy of mine was talking about Toastmasters. And I was like, man, I don't need Toastmasters. Well, man, what are you talking about, man? This is silly, right? And then I went to this big lecture hall, and this white South African guy, this Afrikaner, had that Commonwealth kind of British accent kind of thing, got up there and made this presentation. And to say he was eloquent would be cursing him, right? I mean, it was literally $20 words. I have no idea what he said. All I know is I was enthralled, right? And I was like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. And at the end of the speech, he said, and in 4 years, you guys are going to be able to do this same thing. And I got white as this sheet of paper, man. I was scared to death. I was like, I know what I can do, but I know good and well I can't pull off what this cat just pulled off. Ain't happening, right? So I called my buddy and I was just streaming me a copus, right? Man, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Tell me about this Toastmaster thing. But to see folks come in and even your own growth and development and scared of their own shadow to get up in front of 7 or 8 people or 10 people and just speak on something for a minute and then off the cuff, and then you see them 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, 12 months later, and then all of a sudden they don't even realize how much they've grown. And you see them give a presentation, you're like, dude, you couldn't have done that 6 months ago, right? You
Yeah.
couldn't have done that a year ago. Like to see the growth and how they progress in development. I mean, honestly, that's to see that in other people is
Yeah.
unbelievable, whether it's a workplace or Toastmasters or whatever. And they don't even, like you said, it's like the house. You keep seeing, you get there and it's like, it seems like nothing's happening. But underneath the surface, man, they're growing and developing. And when you see that first shining bright of, wow, they have come a long way since they've started, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's no different in your with your guys either.
No, you hate to lose people. I know that one of my coaches says, David, you've got to quit hating losing people so much, because there's a certain percent you're going to grow and they're going to leave, right? And you won't be 100%. But boy, it sure is nice to watch them. Uh, over the I'd say over the last 7 years, I've lost two people I wish I wouldn't have lost, and I spent a lot of development time on them and everything. But to still hear from them, to thanking me for the time they had here and what all they learned, and to see them being, successful where they're at
Yeah.
and growing, it's really, that's rewarding too. I'd rather they still be here, but
Yeah.
it's rewarding. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that goes back to the old Richard Branson thing about what happens if I spend all this time training and mentoring them and growing them and they leave. And so what happens if you don't and they stay? I think you're on the good end of having a couple of people you don't want to go. I think it's
Yeah.
keep the growing and developing part of it. And if you lose a few people, what you're left with is still better than what you would have had, and a lot of companies have. So speaking about which, and it's a perfect tee up to our last question. What do you think is the best way for leaders to improve their leadership skills?
Well, I think I've maybe hit on some of those through the talk so far, but you never can get old, and so never relax. People always ask me, David, do you ever sleep? And I don't like to sleep. I just don't. And so I'm constantly trying to improve myself. I have an executive coach. Because I don't think that I'm getting everything I need to get out of the organization, and I think I can improve. A lot of people say, "Hey, David, you really changed over the years." Well, I hope so,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I didn't want to stay the same. And so anyway, I think just you got to realize that you yourself are a work in process, and you need to put a lot of effort in making yourself better every day. And so I think you gotta invest that time, whether it's reading, whether it's taking classes, courses, whether it's in a book club, whether it's in a mentor group. For us, it'd be so easy not to seek outside advice, because sometimes you get things you don't want or you don't want to listen to. But you have to be disciplined enough to subject yourself to those things so that you can see different perspectives and different points of views. Um, so I just think, you become complacent. It just scares me to death that I'll become complacent, that I won't be alive. And people have asked me, of course, now that I'm 63, people are asking, hey, when do you think you're going to retire? And the answer is never. I mean, it's not in the Bible.
Yeah.
Um, but as long as I'm having fun,
Yeah.
and as long as I can lead the organization to improvement year over year, then I'm in this. And the day that I can't, the day then I'm not in it, and I'll go away. Um, and sometimes, sometimes just not seeing things. I'll tell you this little story. So the most senior person, actually there is one person here older than me, and so he's a brainy. He's the chemist, the biologist.
Wow.
He's got yeah, we can't put all his degrees on the wall. And anyway, he's extremely intelligent and really good. And so he had said, that this one particular person he thought in our organization was a person we should grow and build. And I said, no, I don't think that's the person. I think it's person B.
Right.
And anyway, so I said, well, I'll tell you what, you take him as your project and I'll take the other person as my project. And anyway, my project's not here anymore. And his project is. And and I sold him short, but I'll tell you, as a family company, it is interesting. We have an Angus business as well, and my son was very engaged in the Angus business, and he really didn't want to be engaged in the apple business. And we were at a point where we said, we're going to consolidate all of our ag operations. And so the ag manager for orchards and him would fight about over acreage, like and they kind of have a little fun with it. And I sold this guy short, and next thing you know, he started having lunches. They had at the garage, they would have a lunch every Friday, and they would cook steaks and whatnot. And I mean, and at times they were really at each other's throat, and my son would say something like, "We're not giving that 200 acres to apple trees. That 200 acres staying in cattle," or something like this.
Yeah.
And they were and anyway, and over time, with me being, I mean, I couldn't fix this myself. It was too close. It was family.
Yeah.
And anyway, and I saw him fix it. And now, today, the other day I pulled up to my son's house and no one came out. And so I just sat there for a while. And eventually I drove off and he texted me, said, "Was that you in the driveway?" And I said, "Yeah, but you're probably busy, so I didn't want to go, they want to disturb me." He said, "Oh, I'm in here working on the computer, figuring, putting their weekly report together for us on the orchards." And so, now he manages the entire ag. He, a guy who I never thought, because he likes his hands dirty, likes to work with the soil, likes to work with the dirt.
Nice.
You'd never see on a computer, now is doing all those things. And so, letting your people develop people inside and not thinking you have to carry the whole burden is also, a very good lesson. And I think a mistake sometimes we make that there's talent, more talent than you realize in your organization. When you call upon it, it will come to the charge and it will surprise you every time.
I would agree with that 100%. I think almost every organization has more talent in there than we really even have the potential to realize. And like I said, if you can tap into it, one, you got to discover it, but sometimes just putting it out there, hey, we need this. Hey, I'm pretty interested in that. And just letting them take the ball and run with it. And like I said, and it's funny because a lot of folks, when they say what the biggest mistakes leaders make, we get delegation quite a bit. Like they just can't let go. And that's one of the answers we get quite often is that people they've got to have that control, or just for whatever reason, nobody can do it as good, whatever, and they just can't let go. And realize they're never going to grow if they don't let go.
Yeah. Someone gave us the chance, right?
Exactly. And at some
Yeah.
point, like I said, you can't scale, you can't grow, you can't do what you need to do if you are constantly, like you mentioned about being overly engaged in the organization. At some point, if you're in the minutia for everything, you can't see the big picture. It's going to be harder to see the big picture. And back to kind of the Maxwell, I like how he talked about leaders see more and leaders see before. And I was like, okay, they got the bigger view picture, and they're seeing a much further timeline than anybody else in the organization.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like I said, that's difficult to go to the seminar and come back and tell them. So kudos on the check, because like I said, for some reason, the team building just isn't the same when you're the only one at the conference and you come back and just like, let me tell you about the cool stuff that I took notes on. Just had the same kind of experience. So, so that's worth the investment in your executive team. That's for sure.
I
So
agree.
tell our listeners how they can connect with you, the company, basically get soak up all the goodness of natural fruit and White House.
Well, if you're local, we're, Food Line, obviously is one of our large customers, Del Hayes. Ahold Delhaize. And when they merged with Martin's, Martin's won out here locally. So we do struggle having all our products here locally. It's amazing. I look at it some days and say, my God, we sold more in Seattle, Washington than we sold in Winchester, Virginia, or 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 some Texas sells more White House products than Virginia and North Carolina combined. So so it sometimes gets to be a little bit of struggle and for people. And we hear a lot, hey, where can we buy you? You're local, and where can we buy you? But we do have an honest store here that everything's in. And if you need products, go in there, weigh it, put your money. It's honest. So put your money in the drawer. If not, if you need it, if you need it, then we're here to support you. And so we hope no one in this area ever goes hungry for Apple products with the Honest Store. But you can connect with us with www.whitehouse.com and Facebook White House, Instagram White House Foods. So make sure you put the foods part on, not White House. So hard to tell what you get. But anyway, it's it's White House Foods basically everywhere. And so that'll help you connect us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and or just bring us up on the web.
Nice. Well, I guess it would be important to put the food in there. Like, I didn't know Joe made applesauce. What the heck? Wrong site.
Yeah, we have a lot of new products coming out too. So, it's one of our, by the way, we expanded 5 pillars, 6 pillars, but it's one of our 6 pillars is new products. So we got a lot of new cool stuff coming out. We're not ready to talk about it all just yet, but it's one of the lifebloods of our organization is to keep innovating and making sure that we stay, the consumer, we're giving the consumer what they need from a convenience standpoint, a price standpoint, a value standpoint. So,
Nice.
yeah, so we should be throwing that stuff out here pretty quick.
Pretty cool. Well, I love the concept of the Honest Store for folks that are not familiar with that. Like I said, you just walk in, you're open, 5 days a week or 6 days a week, and people can
7 days a week.
7 days a week. People could just go in, and like I said, you have the place. Here's the price. Here's the price per pound. Pay what you can, or if you can't afford to pay anything, some people pay more.
Yeah, it's amazing how many months we'll go. And we go more months with people paying less than what's missing.
Yeah.
But we have some months where people pay more, and and that's incredible too. So that's exciting. I got that. I once had a boss who said, "Dave, where do you come up with this stuff?" It'd be things more in operations when I was running operations. And I said, none of it's unique. I stole it all, and we stole that from Honest Tea because that's kind of what they did, and they got $4 million worth of free publicity, and TV time because they were putting those Honest cubicles in, all the metropolitan areas. And anyway, and of course, then he wrote a book about it and tracked what states were the most honest. It's a good book if you haven't read it. But anyway, and so that's where the Honest Store concept came from. Certainly not trying to duplicate, going to all the metropolitan areas and do what he did, but certainly here locally, at least making sure that no one has a need for cleaning products and or healthy Apple products.
Nice. Well, like I said, you don't have to recreate the wheel in business. Most of the time, a lot of just replicate success of others and just tweak it to your industry. It's not rocket science.
Correct.
Unless that's your industry. But
yeah. We make Apple products. Yeah, it's pretty simple.
Yeah. I was to say it's probably simple but not easy. It's like losing weight. Okay. Eat less, exercise more. Simple but not easy. Right.
Right.
Exactly. So with that, wrap up our conversations with leadership on Dr. Dave. We will see you all next time. And special thanks again to David Gum for being our guest.
Thank you, Dave.